Imagine standing beneath a stone weighing more than 700 tons. Now imagine that stone was quarried, transported, lifted, and placed into a monumental platform nearly 2,000 years ago. No engines, no hydraulic cranes, no modern machinery. Just stone, wood, ropes, and human ingenuity. This is Baalbek. And the stones here are so enormous that the real mystery isn't simply how they were moved. It's why anyone decided to move them at all. High in the Beqaa Valley of Lebanon stands one of the most extraordinary Roman temple complexes ever built. But Rome wasn't the first civilization to consider this place sacred. Baalbek had been an important religious site for centuries before the Romans transformed it. Then Rome arrived. And instead of building something merely impressive, they built something enormous. Temples dedicated to Jupiter, Bacchus, and Venus rose above a gigantic stone platform. Massive columns towered over the complex. But hidden inside that platform are three blocks that became legendary. They are known as the Trilithon, three enormous limestone blocks, each estimated to weigh roughly 700 to 800 tons. For scale, a modern passenger aircraft can weigh around 200 tons when fully loaded. One of these stones could weigh several times more. And somehow, they were positioned inside the platform with extraordinary precision. But here's where the mystery gets even bigger. The stones didn't begin their journey here. About a kilometer from the temple complex lies an ancient quarry. And inside that quarry, something extraordinary is still visible. A gigantic block was left partially attached to the bedrock. It became known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. Its estimated weight? Around 1,000 tons. And nearby, archaeologists identified another enormous, unfinished block, often called the Stone of the South. Its estimated weight is even greater, potentially over 1,600 tons, making it one of the largest stone blocks ever cut by human hands. So the ancient builders weren't merely capable of using enormous stones. They were working with some of the largest known stone blocks in antiquity. But quarrying a giant block is only step one. They had to separate it, shape it, transport it, raise it, and finally, put it exactly where they wanted it. And this is where the problem becomes almost absurd. You can't simply push a 700-ton block. You can't carry it. You can't put wheels underneath it and drive away. Every slope matters. Every rope matters. Every mistake could destroy the stone or kill the people around it. So how did they solve it? Not with technology from the future, with something much harder to appreciate: organization. Engineers studying the site point to a system that was already well understood in the Roman world: timber sledges, rollers, packed earthen ramps, and large teams of laborers pulling in coordinated rhythm, likely guided by a foreman calling the pace. It's the same family of methods the Egyptians had used centuries earlier, refined by Roman engineering into something built for a much heavier load. None of that required a miracle. It required precision and thousands of people moving as one. But that still leaves a more interesting question. Why choose stones this enormous? Smaller blocks would have been easier to quarry, transport, lift, and position. Yet the builders deliberately worked on a scale that seems almost excessive. And that may be the real secret of Baalbek. Because this wasn't only engineering. It was power made visible. Imagine approaching the temple thousands of years ago. Before you even entered the sanctuary, the architecture was already sending you a message. Look at the platform. Look at the columns. Look at what we can command. Rome wasn't simply constructing a temple. It was demonstrating wealth, manpower, and political power on a monumental scale, and the stones themselves were the proof. Rome is here. And Rome is powerful enough to reshape the landscape itself. Now, you may have heard theories claiming Baalbek was built by a mysterious civilization long before Rome. Lost technology, sound levitation, something beyond human engineering. But there's no solid archaeological evidence for any of that. The surviving monumental architecture is overwhelmingly dated to the Roman period, based on construction techniques, inscriptions, and building phases identified across decades of excavation. And honestly, We don't need a lost civilization to make this incredible, because the real achievement is more impressive than that. Humans actually did this, with the tools available to them at the time. Look closely at the Trilithon, and you're not just looking at 3 giant stones. You're looking at a transportation problem, a lifting problem, a coordination problem, and somehow, the builders solved all of them. But the how is only half the mystery. The deeper question is, why build something this massive at all? Was it structural? Symbolic? Was the sheer difficulty itself part of the message? Because perhaps the builders understood something we sometimes forget. A monument doesn't only need to stand. It needs to make people feel something. And Baalbek still does. Stand beside these stones today, and you can understand the mathematics, the engineering, the manpower. But none of that fully explains the feeling. Because the stones are still there. The civilization that placed them is gone. The people who pulled the ropes are gone. The empire that wanted this monument to prove its power is gone. But the stones remain. Nearly 2,000 years later, they're still sitting in the same landscape. And that creates one final paradox. We have machines that can lift hundreds of tons, laser scanners, computer simulations, and yet no surviving document tells us exactly how the Trilithon was moved. No blueprint, no instruction manual. The stones tell us what was achieved. They don't tell us everything about how the builders thought. And maybe that's why Baalbek still fascinates people today. Not because ancient builders had impossible technology, but because they didn't. They had comparatively simple tools and turned them into an extraordinary engineering system. They looked at a block weighing hundreds of tons and decided, we're going to move it. And then they did. So here's the question. If you were standing there 2,000 years ago with nothing but ropes, wood, stone, and thousands of people beside you, would you have dared to attempt it? Because the strangest thing about Baalbek may not be the size of the stones. It may be the ambition of the people who looked at them and believed they could be moved. And nearly 2,000 years later, we're still standing beneath their answer. Next time, the Egyptian obelisk that took an empire 11 years to move 17 miles. If you want to see how, subscribe, that one's next.